It's really not this devastating stage of life. It's just more fun. There's just a little bit of more time to have fun together. And that's what I said. So for some reason, we had an intuition early on that we need to plan ahead for what it will be like for later on in life. I don't know how we knew that. I think we just did. We knew we had to plan ahead and have fun early on, even when we didn't have so much time and emotional space. But we did it. It was like a campaign to make sure that we spend time together and invested in our relationship, even if the kids weren't probably not so happy about that. And now it's really easy. We really don't have trouble finding things to talk about or fun things to do because we're just used to having fun together.
But what do you do? What do you do to develop the ability to be ready to be an empty nester? Because being an empty nester is not only about when your children are grown. You could have periods of time in the year where all the kids are away at summer camp, or you could be on vacation and after 2 days have nothing to say to each other. So how do you keep it fresh and you make sure that there's always like challenging things to talk about and to connect over?
That's a very good question. I think number one, for us at least, we like each other. That helps.
But we're not very similar, so why
No.
do we like each other?
Yeah,
Because,
we're not similar at all.
You're not my type.
You're not my type either.
So how does this work exactly?
I think we both have a value to spend time together as a couple. Just because we are a couple, we have a value of having fun.
Mm-hmm.
We have a value in enhancing the relationship, and we always did.
Right, and the differentness is not a catastrophe. Sometimes it's frustrating that we have different interests and different ways of looking at the world, and the truth is that when you approach those differences with an open mind, it becomes enriching and challenging. So sometimes it's hard for me to translate things that are of significance to me and try to explain them in a language that I could really feel that you're getting. But I know that you struggle with that too, and that it's our focus, and
I
that
think
we
we've made
concentrate.
progress.
Yeah, so I try to enjoy the things that you enjoy and try to understand why you enjoy it and connect over that, and I think you do the same.
And we've been reading a book once a week for a few minutes on a topic that's more challenging for me, and I'm learning to really appreciate it. So we do
Right.
lean towards each other's differences.
Right, it might be worthwhile to explain the actual compromise, but only as a model. You first have to understand the concept. The concept is that obviously we have different interests, and that to spend time together, we need to find some kind of middle ground. So I might like something that's much more intellectual and involves a particular person's research and what they've come to write about and understand. And that's not interesting to you. That's too academic. You don't like stuff like that. It's boring and too technical. So what did we find? But again, it's not about the compromise. It's about the willingness to have the compromise in the first place that allowed us to find it. I didn't get frustrated. She didn't get frustrated. So what did we find? We found a very well done biography about the person whose research I'm constantly reading. So by and by, in the story of the biography are obviously very important intellectual snippets of that particular person's successes or way of looking at the world or their studies.
And how they grew up, and that's very interesting because there are aspects of the book that are interesting.
Exactly.
To me,
So there's a narrative and there's a contextual piece of this person's life and how they became who they are. So that involves more of a relational kind of interest which appeals to you. So we're having a great time reading that book together, but we've read a lot of other books together too. And this is part of how you try to share interests.
Well, that's another thing. It's kind of off topic about empty nest syndrome. We have always been reading books together for about, I would say, 15 minutes to a half an hour a week. We pick a book and we read it. And I take a turn to read out loud. you take a turn to read out loud, and all kinds of books. It could be
Right.
anything.
And we take turn based on the interest, but it's much better than watching a movie together. Media's poison today. You don't know what kind of garbage they're filling you up with. And in any case, it's totally passive. So you get lulled into some kind of trance. Instead of really reading about ideas and talking about the ideas, it even could be a fiction book. It doesn't matter. The characters
we could
go
stop
through...
and discuss things that come up in the book that are interesting, or to discuss how it relates to our current life today, and then we go back to reading. And we've gone through a lot of books.
So reading out loud is, I think, something people really should do, and I think it has a very different flavor than entertainment, even though obviously books are a form of entertainment, but it's a deeper kind of entertainment with more gravity, and leaves a lot more room for people instead of visual images and auditory stimulation, which just kind of distracts.
It's also a good date activity. We've gone to a bookstore together on a date to choose a book together, and that's fun too.
Okay, so how do we round out this discussion about empty nest?
Oh yeah, we didn't really plan this out. We were going to talk about empty nest syndrome, which does not feel like a syndrome to me. Does it feel like a syndrome to you?
But I can understand it if you don't have a good relationship to fill up your time. Once the children are around, what are you going to do?
So I'll just say for the younger couples out there, conduct yourselves as a couple today in your 20s and 30s and 40s, thinking ahead about how it's going to be after the kids are not in the house. They're at school, or they're married and they have their own lives, and that's going to happen pretty soon. So plan now, do it now, have fun now, have dates now, even though you're busy and the kids want you to do stuff with them, but take your time as a couple at least once a week.